There is a lot going on here at the Taking Off channel, so we're going to talk about that on this podcast coming right now. Hello and welcome to the Taking Off podcast. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong.
And Christy, we're going to just do a more informal one here. There's been a lot going on in general aviation just in the last few weeks. Here we are. I usually record these. I record a month's worth of podcast. But on this one, I'm going to interject it into the schedule from last month, and we're going to post this in a few days.
Okay.
So this one's going to be kind of fresh and hot off the press and all that. A lot of crashes going on right now.
Yeah, October has not been a great month so far.
No, it hasn't. And there have been some very public ones, and there's been some that aren't as public, but a lot going on. And, it's hard to take some of these.
Yeah, in fact, so I hadn't even told you this, but that crash of the Cherokee 140 in Utah that happened a few days ago? It turns out that was the owner of the hotel that we stay at in Bismarck. And we had, Kevin and I had actually met him 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. Super, super nice guy. And I actually just found out yesterday that was him. And
wow.
Yeah, that was tough.
It is tough, and it seems like, I've had now two people that I consider to be friends, not just people I'd met once or twice or whatever, but actual friends. I've had two now that have died in plane crashes.
You remember a few years ago the Barron crash outside of Kerrville?
Oh, yes.
You remember that one?
Yeah, actually, the Air Safety Institute has a video on that.
Yeah, they sure do. So,
fuel exhaustion.
Yeah, so get this. That weekend that it happened, literally, I think it was that Friday before. I think it was actually the day before it happened or something. I had met him. It was when Steve and I were still together. Steve and I were down in Houston because I think we were flying a King Air. And we actually met him and his wife. Mm. And she wasn't with him on the airplane when it went down. But that was crazy because we had just met the guy. He was so nice. We were going to get together again the next time we were in Houston. We just connected and hit it off. And then it was oh my gosh, and he's gone,
Well, Sunday night, October 1st, I'm sitting there and I start getting text messages and learn that Richard McSpadden had died in a plane crash. And that one, out of them all, this one has hit the hardest.
Oh, I'm going to have a hard time talking about this, Sam.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time too. And I just talked to Richard about a week before. I call Richard all the time. I consider him a mentor, somebody who has given me a lot of advice. Yeah, he's been on our show a bunch. And this one was hard. I didn't know quite what to do. I went ahead and filmed a tribute video, and that was hard.
Yeah, I could not be part of that. I could not do it because I would not have been, that was tough. Richard was one of the first people that reached out to me after the Warrior incident a couple years ago.
When somebody flew it upside down?
Yeah, exactly. He reached out to me, and we had some really insightful conversations. He was always there. I remember reaching out to him several times. In fact, I know this sounds really silly. One of my aviation heroes in the NTSB space is Greg Feith. Mm-hmm. And I had literally just talked to Richard a couple months ago, and he was going to see about making introductions to Greg Feith for me. And I remember being really excited about that. But I hadn't followed up with him on it because we were so busy. There was Oshkosh, and I had spoken to him just after Oshkosh. And but then August came, and then September is my crazy recurrent medical month. And then I was going to follow up with him and just never did. And honestly, that just stings. That really stings.
Well, there's a new thing, and we'll talk about this later on in this podcast, where I wanted his advice. and also wanted to connect AOPA with this thing, and I was putting it off. I'm glad that a week ago I called Richard and made that connection, so we got that done. But this one hurt. Richard was the kind of guy that's instantly friendly and he's humble, but he's good. You know, he was one of the best pilots I'd ever met.
You'd never know it, though. He was so humble.
You'd never know it. No, we had him out on the show with Mark Baker, spent the weekend, you know, filming and all this kind of stuff. He went back, and then like months later, I find out that he was Thunderbird 1.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he'd been in the Air Force.
Yeah, we hung out with him the whole weekend, and he spent time talking with audience members and chatting with us and answering questions. Just a super down-to-earth, super nice guy. He gave us his cell phone number and was like, reach out anytime. And we're just like, okay. And it turns out this dude is actually like seriously cool, you know?
Well, since posting the tribute video, I've had many, many people reach out to tell me their story of connecting with Richard. And just over and over again, that's what Richard did.
I'm not surprised.
He was a bridge that brought people together. And he had connected me with the then chairman of the NTSB, who has since left, and we weren't able to get the schedules working, and maybe one day we will. But I mean, that was Richard. He would just, hey, you want to talk to the chairman of the NTSB? Like, yeah, you know. So
he was funny. He was funny too.
Oh,
like,
very funny.
Yeah, that's the thing that doesn't really come across in a lot of his like interviews and stuff like that. But I just remember talking to him, and man, he was just so funny and such a fun guy to talk to.
The last conversation I had with him on the phone last week, I was done with the business part of it, and he says, "Oh, Dan, I need to tell you this," and he told me a very funny story. I'm not going to share it, but because that's what he was. He was funny.
Yeah, he was just an overall really great guy. He's left a gaping hole in the aviation community.
So I came up here Tuesday night. So Sunday night we got the word. I was out of town on Monday. I came up here on Tuesday night. The studio's quiet, nobody here. It's all dark. I turn everything on, turn the camera on, and I shoot this tribute thing by myself, and it took me a long time.
Yeah.
Multiple takes, and even after I got to it the first time, go to find out that my camera battery had died.
Oh, gosh.
So I had to do it again and again, but it was probably better that way because the first ones were just, I was a bit of a mess there on some of these first ones.
I remember you texted me on Sunday and you said we lost Richard McSpadden, and I remember thinking, like, in what capacity are you talking? Like, did you lose him? Do we need to find him on GPS? Like, where'd he go?
Right.
And then you let me know. You told me what happened, and the first thing I did was I went and started trying to search for stuff because I was like, this is not possible.
Well, and, you know, it's probably the most talked about airplane crash right now in social media and everything else. And I want to caution everybody to just not jump to the conclusions because people are all going, oh, it was the impossible turn. It was the impossible turn. We don't know that. It might have been, but we
don't even know who was at the controls.
We don't know because what we do know is Richard was right seat. It was the left seat was the Russ Francis, the former NFL player, who had, I've been told, like 50 years of flying, and he owned that airplane, and he was left seat. So, also, you know, people say, well, you know, impossible turn, but you know, it's the impossible turn is not a sit back here and decide whether you can or cannot do it. It's not the way it works. You have to decide on the, you know, right before you take the runway each and every time of what your altitude, because wind's going to come into it, the airplane's going to come into it, your density, altitude, your weather, your weight, everything comes into it. So it's going to be different every time. And what I do before I take off on every takeoff is I say what I'm going to do if I have loss of thrust on the runway, what I'm going to do if I have loss of thrust shortly after, and then at what altitude will I attempt to turn back to the airport based on the conditions of the airplane, the airport, and the weather.
Well, and I'm going to tell you this. human factors is a very real thing. It's so easy for us to sit here and armchair quarterback. And I'm going to let you guys know, it's one thing to sit here and talk about a situation and try to go through the facts and, okay, what can we learn from this? It's another thing to condemn and armchair quarterback a situation. Well, I wouldn't have, or I would have done this or done that. You don't know until you're in that situation.
We don't know.
I'm not going to talk about details, but I recently had a situation that was similar, and it takes you a few seconds to like for your brain to put the dots together and go, okay, this is happening. And I need to do like, what do I do now? Okay, this is what I need to do. But it's a good 8 to 10 seconds easily. And in a situation like that, that's all you might have.
Well, and I watched a local news cast on the accident with the reporter on the scene at the Lake Placid airport where the Cardinal that Richard and Russ Francis were in. And the reporter interviewed an eyewitness, a woman. And the woman said she could hear the engine was making a funny sound. Okay, well, so the engine wasn't out. It could have been that the airplane was still producing some thrust if it was making a funny sound. So, you don't know.
Yeah, we're not going to know. They need to get in there, look at the engine, look at everything, look at the factors, try to disseminate. And they may never know who exactly was at the controls. I suspect, if I know Richard, I suspect that Russ was probably flying, and
it was Russ's plane. Russ was a very accomplished, very experienced pilot.
There may not have been enough time for an exchange of flight controls. And why would Richard take the flight controls anyway if it was Russ's airplane? He was familiar with the airplane.
He knew the airspeeds and everything else.
Another hypothesis is that maybe he tried to turn back and Richard was like, no, and he, maybe there was a struggle over controls.
I don't think that. That's
right, but you just don't know. That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
And that's why all this conversation on social media that I see taking place about the impossible turn, I feel like I wish people would chill on that, because we don't know that was the thing. And the impossible turn situation is a variable situation.
Yeah, right now all we have are guesses.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I understand why people want to talk about this, is because it really does hit close to home. All of these crashes do. But when a beloved figure in aviation, like, Richard McSpadden, passes away in an airplane crash, that really hits close to home for a lot of us.
It does. And, we want to know. And on Monday when I was traveling, I was with extended family. 2 of them were psychologists. And I talked to my mentor, who's a psychologist, extended family.
Is he the one we had on?
No, that's the one I'm talking about is his dad.
Okay, got it.
But yes, those are the 2 in the family. And I was with him, and I just said, why? Because it was eating me up. And I was like, why do I fixate on this as a pilot? Why do I want to know? And that's when he gave, if you watch the video that I did for Goodbye Richard McSpadden, I talk about he's told me the story of the dog in the yard. And, when you see somebody else walk through the yard and they get bit by the dog, we want to know what, because we share that could be us, we share this kind of bond that we really want to know so that we don't get bit by the dog.
Yeah, it's not even, I don't disagree with that. But a few years ago, I lost a neighbor, literally right next door, passed away. And I didn't know her incredibly well, but I knew her enough to where it's a shock. It's a shock to the system. And you go, whoa. Anytime you lose somebody, I remember the first time I really remember losing somebody, I was a teenager, and it was another teenager friend of mine that died. And again, it's just one of those things where it's like, I know that person and now they're gone forever, and I want to know why. Mm-hmm. Even when you get the answers, you're still kind of like
there's a purpose, or there's there's got to be a reason, a good reason why this person is now gone.
And I think in a lot of ways you want to assign blame to something so that there's something concrete to point the blame to.
To have closure, maybe?
Maybe. So when I was when I was young, there was a girl that died. She was a girl that went to my high school. She was walking alongside the highway after getting into a fight with her boyfriend. She literally told her boyfriend to pull over the car. He pulled over. She got out. She started walking down the road. She wound up getting hit by a car and died. And that stung. And I wasn't even like close friends with her, but just the fact that I knew her.
And now she was gone.
And now she was just like, you know, I mean, I think that's one of those things where it's like, you know, dying is just this permanent thing. I know it's a morbid topic, but it's like, it's a fact. You know, you got to talk about it. And
it's how we get through it too. And it's how we kind of move on. And honestly, when I did the video on Tuesday night, my Goodbye Richard McSpadden video, I had not slept well Sunday night or Monday night. And I was kind of hoping, okay, good. This will be a release. I can get past it. But no, not really.
I think what it is it's understanding leads to acceptance with any sort of tragedy, whether it's a breakup, a death in the family, or whatever.
The 5 stages of grief, any psychologist will tell you.
Yeah. But it's that understanding that leads to acceptance. And I think right now we're waiting to understand how and why this happened.
Yeah, we still have all the other stages. Acceptance is the very last in the 5 stages of grief. You know, we still got anger coming, you know, all those kind of things. So.
And it's like, why, you know, but the question too kind of goes back to why do we grieve, you know, these things? Like, for example, some of these crashes that happen where we don't necessarily know the person, how can we grieve that? It's because we have this connectivity to it via aviation. And, you know, I remember, you know, there was another person in my community a few years ago who died in a terrible, horrific crash on the freeway. You know, and it's just things like that, like, hey, I knew that person or I knew of that person and they died. Like that could, like you said, that could be me. And you want to understand it so that you can accept it and kind of move on. It's just, you know, human psychology.
All right. Well, we'll kind of move on. This one, that was a hard one to talk about, but let's move on to some more channel stuff. I will tell you that I have been swamped with the amount of footage that I have in the can that I need to get edited and get out. And if I were to do no more shooting, I could still release 3 or 4 videos a week through the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So
I know I keep asking you about, hey, Dan, have you worked on this episode that I filmed? Have you worked on that episode? And you're like,
Well, and so there's so much. And here's some of the things, just to tease what's coming up. Brian and I did a very intensive 4-day, I was going to say crash course, but don't say crash.
Oh, don't say crash in airplanes.
We did a 4-day intensive commercial multi-add-on course at Aviator Air in Grand Prairie. And Brian's already released one video, and I've got to release mine. And I've got it, you know, probably 3/4 of the way edited. I just need to finish it up.
We need to hire more editors.
Well, the problem that I have, and I'm trying. There's a fan of the channel that I'm trying out as well in another state. The logistics of being in another state is hard. The problem is that you get a pilot who is a hobbyist editor is really different than a seasoned know how to tell a story editor. The problem with those editors, they don't know aviation. And I have 2 on staff, but I just can't give them, okay, here's pilot stories, you know, where they're going to talk about this plane that they're flying in. Just go to our stock video and find, you know, supporting elements. They're going to be talking about a Piper, but they'll show a high wing, you know, or something. And by the time I explain all that, well, I could just done it myself. The same thing within the hangar where I'm putting in all these support.
So if you're an editor and a pilot, please reach out to us.
Yes. I really would like to find a true, like somebody who's a full-time, this is my career, storyteller editor, not just the hobbyist. That's the hard thing. And then they're also a pilot. So that's been the struggle. So, you know, I'm putting out almost 4 videos a week on average, and I'm the one doing, you know, 99%.
A lot of the work because you're an editor and a pilot.
Now, fortunately, your new series that we've been doing, it's been 9 months now, but your pilot life with Christy, about your
airline pilot stuff.
With your career with Envoy, I have finally been able to just hand off some of that to my editors that are on staff here at S Films. And because of that, we've gotten a couple of those out. But we shot in January, we shot what I called flight camp with 3 of us. And I've got probably 9 episodes. And we've got episode 1 edited. I just haven't posted it yet because I don't want to post it until I have more of the 9 episodes. Otherwise, I'm going to post this 1 episode and then
it'll take 9 months to get the second one.
Yeah. So that's the struggle. The struggle is real. Just a lot of footage building up, and I'm going to go ahead and power out this training with Brian because the story of that was how freaking hot it was. And if I release that in December, people just won't understand what we're talking about or went through. So I got to hurry and get that one out. Then I'll get to flight camp and try to get some of those
You guys literally did your check ride, I think, on the hottest day of the year.
Yeah.
Because I was down there and I was like, boy, it's hot.
It was like 110 when Brian went out, and Brian took the hotter part of the day than I did. So he took it harder than I did.
He's a glutton for punishment.
He is. So so that's what we have from the channel. Then, as some of you know, I run a video and film production company. That's why I have editors on staff. So we're doing some TV shows. We're doing a lot of commercials and corporate video. Corporate communications is what we do here at S Films. Well, there is a new thing coming, and you guys out there will be hearing a lot more about this. But there is a guy in Fort Worth who wants to create an aviation network. And what they've landed on, because this is not the time to do a network, is a video on demand app. So he's creating an app where you'll have all this content, aviation content, on demand. So you can go watch this stuff whenever you want to. Subscription-based model, so there'll be no ads. And they're hiring my company, S Films, to help make that possible. So we've got a lot of stuff going. It's called Arrowverse, and there's going to be a big launch coming, and the app will actually launch on December 17th.
Oh, yay. It's the anniversary of Powered Flight. Very good.
Knew, yes.
Of course I know.
They'll flip the switch at the moment that the flight took place.
That's kind of cool. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm a sentimental person. I like sentiment.
Yeah. So they're going for the sentiment, and we're helping. And in addition to, they'll have some YouTubers, some popular YouTubers videos that are available ad-free. That would be the difference. They'll also have a whole bunch of other library footage of shows. And then in addition, they're hiring S Films, and they'll hire other companies too to do some original exclusive content just for the Arrowverse app. So we're partnering up, and more on that soon. We're in production right now on some of that.
Cool.
So very cool.
Look forward to that.
And in the meantime, you need to keep shooting on Airline Pilot Life with Christy.
I tell you what, you get out my next 2 episodes, and I will give you more footage.
Then we won't have anything.
Well, good.
We've only got the next 2 episodes. We need more now.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
You got to build the pipeline. Haven't I taught you anything with, 9 episodes in the can for the flight camp?
All I know is don't burn the fuse. That's that's what I've taken away from this whole experience.
All right. So in talking about our channel, kind of housekeeping and updating of what's going on here at Taking Off and S Films. So, we did an episode, a podcast that surprised me how popular it was, and that was the Taking Off Weight episode.
Yes.
How is that going?
Oh, wow, that caught me off guard. It's like, how is my personal journey?
Yeah, so, you posted, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you posted something this morning.
Oh, yeah. I think it was last night or something. Yeah, I posted something. I like to make accountability posts because I have people reaching out to me frequently. You should see my Facebook Messenger inbox. I literally have people that are like, oh, can I do the fitness app with you? Can I do this? Can I do that? And every month I have one guy in particular, he was actually a guest on our show previously, who has been very serious about losing weight. And every month he touches base with me. And several other people have said that I've really inspired them to get back in the gym, lose weight, eat better, etc. So that's why I continue to post. I post for myself, but I feel like accountable to people now. So I'm like, oh, I need to keep going. In fact, on October 19th of this year, I'm hitting a milestone. I will have worked out every day for a minimum of 30 minutes every day for 1 year.
Wow.
That's huge. Like, how many people can say, oh, yeah, I went to the gym or I worked out. I closed my exercise ring every single day for a year.
Wow.
And my exercise ring is set for 30 minutes. So that way I can complete that even on days when I'm busy. Now, oftentimes, if I've got the time, like I'm out on an overnight in a hotel and I don't have a flight till that afternoon, I'll go for an hour in the gym. But that way, if I have an early flight and all I have is 30 minutes, it's easily accomplishable.
That's pretty admirable. I actually was doing well last week.
Where'd you go for lunch today?
And I got to the lowest I have been last week. And then some bad news happened over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I've been depression eating.
Oh.
So
you got to be careful with that.
I know.
I mean, so it's weird. I'm an emotional eater, but I'm the exact opposite.
So
I don't eat when I'm sad.
I've been depressed and not eaten and lost a ton of weight before, but in this case, no, I've been depression eating.
Yeah.
The last few days.
I've been doing pretty good with my nutrition and eating. A lot of you guys know I eat low carb. Mm-hmm. So I don't do carbs. So yesterday I actually made a low carb lasagna. That was really, really good. And so that's what I brought.
I'm going to take your word for it.
No, it's actually really, really, really good. So I brought that for lunch today. I heated it up in the microwave. Dan went out for Whataburger.
I did. Yes. And to the, now I got a junior hamburger. So
did you have fries with that?
I did have fries.
And the bun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm off the wagon. But the point is, I did
go big or go home.
Well, no, I did not go big. I did not go double meat. Blah blah blah. I did
the meat is not the problem.
I did a kid hamburger.
Okay.
I know the problem is all the lettuce and tomatoes and stuff people put on there.
Oh my gosh. No, the problem is all the bread and the fries and all the carby goodness that's going to spike your insulin.
So, so I'm going to get back here pretty quick. I know I need to, and I will.
You're my numbers guy. I don't really track the numbers of our videos or anything. I just take your word for it. So that surprises me that taking off weight was actually...
It's a strong episode for podcasts. The podcasts aren't getting the numbers that some of the other videos because it's a podcast.
That's fine.
This is meant to be listened to on long drives. And so, okay, well, that pretty much wraps up kind of what's going on here at the Taking Off World Headquarters.
Yeah.
So do you want to mention our sponsors?
Okay.
Should I?
All right. We got Flying Ice. We got Colton Mortgage. We got 67D.
But you got to tell people what to do.
I got to remember them first.
Okay. All right.
All right. We got Colton Mortgage. They do mortgages. Use them. Flying Eyes Optics. They're awesome. Wear them. 67D. The best mounts for the cameras. They're
and
awesome.
Cell phones.
Yeah, cell phones and stuff too. But yeah, for all that stuff, we got Z Vision. They do lights. If you want to light it up, use them. We got Marshall Protective Services. If you need protection, they got you. And then we got Clemens Insurance. Jerry, he's the man. That whole like 15% or more, right? He's better than the gecko. So call Jerry.
Right. All right.
Did I remember all of them?
You did. I like to tell people where to go. So like flyingeyesoptics.com. Use our discount code taking off all caps one word. They are in the description, but people listening on Spotify don't have that.
Then they just need to go to YouTube and they
Colton
need to go
Mortgage,
to the decision.
ColtonTakingOff.com, MPSProtects.com, 67D.com, ClemensInsurance.net. .net and zvision xevision.com.
All right. If you want to be a sponsor on our show.
So, to that end, I am talking to somebody about redoing the panel on Lola. So I'm in talks right now with that. So we'll see what happens, and maybe because I need to get new avionics.
I mean, I still like my sweet, sweet 6-pack on the Warrior. So I'm having a really hard time.
Yeah, but you're old school.
I am. I'm having a hard time deciding on what I want to do because I know eventually I'm going to need to bump her up into the future. But
all right. So appreciate you guys listening to our Taking Off podcast. And as always, superior judgment trumps superior skills. Stay safe.
Fly safe.